It's dusk, and you're walking back through the woods. The light is almost gone, and then, right at the edge of where you can see, something moves. A shape that's too big, too upright, too still. Your skin prickles, your heart picks up, and some older, faster part of you has already decided that's not a tree. Something is out there. It's almost certainly a tree. But that feeling, that ancient electric certainty that something is watching from the dark, is one of the oldest things about you. And tonight, it's our guide. Because we're going looking for monsters. Hi, I'll be your guide for this one. Grab a flashlight. We're going to walk through the most famous creatures that supposedly share this planet with us, the ones caught in blurry photos and half-remembered glimpses, and then ask the only question that actually matters. Why do we keep seeing them? Let's start with the big one, Bigfoot. A massive, ape-like figure that walks upright through the forests of North America, named long before any camera existed, in the traditions of the indigenous peoples of the Pacific Northwest. For most of history, he was a story. And then, in 1967, two men named Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin rode into a California valley called Bluff Creek with a camera and came back with this. About a minute of shaky film of a tall, dark figure striding across a clearing and glancing back over its shoulder. It is, to this day, the single most famous piece of cryptid evidence ever captured. People have spent entire careers arguing over the way it walks, the way the muscles seem to shift under the fur. Others say it's exactly what it looks like, a man in a suit. After more than half a century of searching, no body has ever been found. No bones, no clear DNA, just that one strip of film and a feeling that won't go away. Now cross an ocean to a long, deep, cold lake in the Scottish Highlands. Loch Ness. Here the monster isn't an ape but a serpent, a long neck rising out of black water, and in 1934, a respectable London doctor handed a newspaper the photo that would define her forever. They called it the surgeon's photograph, and for 60 years it was the best proof anyone had. There's just one problem. It was a toy. In 1994, one of the men behind it confessed before his death. The monster was a sculpted head and neck of wood putty stuck onto a little wind-up toy submarine bought from a department store and floated in the shallows. The whole thing was revenge. Cooked up by a big game hunter, the same newspaper had humiliated a year earlier after his monster footprint turned out to be made with a dried hippo's foot. The most famous monster photo of the century was a clockwork toy in the shallows of a loch, and it changed nothing. People kept seeing her anyway. Some monsters are stranger and sadder. In late 1966, in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, people began reporting a tall winged figure with glowing red eyes near an old abandoned munitions site. They called it Mothman. The sightings spread for about a year, and then, in December 1967, a bridge in the town collapsed during rush hour and killed 46 people. A real tragedy. And in the retelling through books and films, Mothman slowly transformed from a local scare into an omen, a creature that had come to warn them. That connection was added later, after the fact. But it tells you something true about us. We would rather have a monster than have no reason at all. High in the Himalayas lives the Yeti, the so-called abominable snowman, woven for centuries into the traditions of the people who actually live on those mountains. In 1951, a British climber named Eric Shipton was crossing a glacier near Everest when he found, pressed into the snow, an enormous footprint. He laid his ice axe beside it for scale and took a picture. That photo launched 1,000 expeditions. But there's a quieter explanation. In snow, an ordinary bear track can melt at the edges in the sun and refreeze, swelling into something huge and strange. And when scientists finally tested DNA from Yeti hair and bone, the answer kept coming back the same. Bear. Rare, beautiful Himalayan bears, but bears. And it keeps happening. The chupacabra, the goat sucker, that terrorized Puerto Rico in the 1990s, across Texas and Mexico, every body anyone actually recovered turned out to be a coyote or a dog, ravaged and made monstrous by a skin disease called mange. Over and over, when we finally get close enough to look, the monster resolves into something ordinary. But here's where it gets interesting, because if we stopped there, we'd be missing half the story. Sometimes the monster was real. For centuries, sailors swore a colossal beast with grasping arms could rise from the deep and pull a ship under. The Kraken. Educated people knew it was a tall tale, right up until we hauled up the giant squid, a real animal with eyes the size of dinner plates and arms longer than a bus. European naturalists scoffed at the gorilla until they met one. They declared the okapi a myth, and then it walked out of the Congo. And when the first platypus reached Britain, scientists were so certain it was a hoax, a duck's bill sewn onto a beaver, that they checked the pelt for stitches. "Here be monsters," was written on old maps over the places no one had been yet. And sometimes the monsters were just animals we hadn't met. So which is it? Are we fools chasing toys in lakes, or explorers who keep being proven right? The honest answer is neither. We're just running very old software. It evolved in a world where the rustle in the tall grass really might be a leopard, and where guessing wrong only went one way. Assume it's the wind and walk on, and once in 1,000 times, it's the last mistake you ever make. Assume it's a predator and flinch, and you've lost nothing but a heartbeat. So evolution built you to flinch, to see the face in the shadow, the figure in the trees, and to err every single time on the side of something's there. That same wiring is why you see a face in a cloud, or in the front of a car, or in a dark doorway at 3 in the morning. It's called pareidolia. It's a smoke detector designed to shriek at burnt toast, because the one time it's a real fire, the shrieking saves your life. The forests went quiet. The maps filled in. But the ancient machinery that spent 1,000,000 years scanning the tree line for a shape never switched off. It just kept finding shapes. Which brings us back to the woods at dusk, and that thing at the edge of your vision that made your heart jump. Walk a little closer, and it's a stump. The monster was never really out there in the dark. It was always in here, in a mind built by 1,000,000 years of danger to never ever assume the coast is clear. And honestly, the most fascinating creature in any of these tales was always the one holding the camera.